Hope you're having a fantastic day. I don't normally do content about cameras, but I recently put in a pre-order for the FX30 Cinema line camera, and I'll be receiving that in a few days. This is a camera that's been causing a huge storm on the internet because it's feature packed and it's supposed to produce video that is quite exceptional, and it doesn't cost much more than the latest iPhone. That's body only, mind you. I know there's a lot of people thinking about upgrading to this new FX30, so let's talk about this camera and let me provide some of my personal opinions, and hopefully my thoughts can help you decide if this is a camera that's right for you. Before we even get into it, let me say, let's address the hype. I know Sony, they did an amazing campaign having all these professionals produce these movie-like segments filmed with the FX30, and most people were like, wow, this is a professional camera that can actually create movies. But if you look closely at most of these productions that were done, they were using extremely expensive equipment, and they had whole crews of artists, they had cranes, elaborate lighting, they had sound crews, they had the best colorists. And you also have to take note of the lenses that they had mounted on the front of this camera. They were really expensive lenses that would be worth a whole lot more than this FX30. So just being realistic, if money's no object and crazy cash is being spent on a production, this really isn't going to be the camera that they're going to be using. Yeah, it might be a camera used in a drone shot, or maybe used in a tight space, or mounted to a car which is going to be crashed or blown up. Maybe. Realistically though, most people buying this camera are buying it for the price versus the features. And I'm not saying that the images produced aren't going to be absolutely amazing. They will be. I just feel that it's more prosumer than pro, but this camera is light, it's compact, it's relatively cheap, and has unreal features. And that's why I'm buying the FX30. So who's the FX30 for? Well, as mentioned, it's kind of prosumer, someone looking for a B or C cam, or it's for low or no budget documentaries, event shooting, short films, content creators, YouTubers, maybe semi-professionals who don't make a lot of money and can't justify spending, say, $10,000 or up on a camera kit and lenses. Maybe some professionals may use this camera. An example that I can think of is a reporter in the field who needs to operate their camera themselves, and they're in difficult conditions. They need a light camera that's more just run and gun. And I could see that happening. Like a great example would be the Ukraine war. A reporter on the front lines, this would be the perfect camera for them. But okay, this segment of the market I've just described, truly think about it for a second. That's probably about 70% of the industry. And no matter what, Sony's going to do really well with the FX30. In my opinion, there's no other camera that's even going to come close to offering the same image quality and features of the FX30 for the price. And I feel that for so many people, this is going to be the perfect camera for them, especially if they are more into video shooting. So I think Sony's just really going to hit this one out of the park. Okay, let's talk about some of the features which make this camera exceptional. And I'm not going to go over all of them because I know you've probably watched a bunch of FX30 videos and you know what they are, but I wanted to talk about the ones that I feel are really important. First though, let me tell you about why I'm buying this camera and my use case, and this will all tie together for you in a few minutes here, so just bear with me. For myself, I do have a day job which produces my money and my living. And once in a while, I will use my camera for, like, say, some talking heads or promotional stuff. But I really use my camera for my side gig, which I do mostly for fun. My side gig is YouTube and some media work for some clients. And I can't really say that I'm a professional, but it does produce money, and I'd like to expand into some other areas in the near future. On a monthly basis, my side gig produces enough funds to easily purchase an FX30, so I can justify buying a camera like this. And buying anything else that's more expensive just really wouldn't make financial sense for me. I've mostly used the A7 III and the APSC A6600 for most of my media work, and I feel a large number of you watching might be upgrading from the same kind of like A7 II or A7 III, or the A6000 series, or even some other camera system that is more photocentric or even a little bit older, or both. And I think we're suffering from the same camera deficiencies, so I feel that you'll likely appreciate my list of important features, which makes this FX30 worth buying. Until the FX30 came along, I didn't think it'd be possible to upgrade to something a lot better that had all the features that I needed unless I spent an extreme amount of money. So obviously I was quite excited when this camera was announced. So let's talk about some of the features that I think are a huge upgrade over the camera systems I'm using right now. So number one, I shoot a lot of 60 frames so I can slow it down. And I'd like to do this in 4K sometimes for higher end projects. And the FX30, it shoots in 60 and 120 frames in 4K. And mind you, in 120 frames, it does change your field of view by a crop of 1.6. But for myself, that's okay because I feel that shooting in 120 frames is more for like specialty shots and I won't be using it that often. So number two, I feel the 10-bit is very important. It just looks better and it's easier to work with in post. My current camera is 8-bit and I do find it more difficult to make adjustments in color or even like, if I didn't get the white balance, perfect. It just, those video adjustments, the footage just falls apart so easily, and I'm sure a lot of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Number three, the FX30 allows you to record gyro data in camera and allows you to import your footage into Catalyst Browse and stabilize your footage in post, which is something that I feel a lot of people will be using, and it's a really useful feature. And in the future, I'm sure that most of the video editing suites will have a plugin which will make the whole Catalyst browse and importing your footage for processing just a lot more seamless. Number four, I feel the flippy screen and the tally lights are also a game changer. It sounds a bit silly to say, but for a solo content creator, it's pretty much a must have. You can turn the screen towards yourself and you can set up your framing and eliminate the need for an external monitor. And having those tally lights and, when you hit record, you just know that your camera is recording and it just takes the stress out of the whole filming process. Number five, the XLR handle is awesome. Plugging directly into your camera using XLR is a problem-free way to get audio. If you're running wires to a microphone jack, you're just increasing your chance for noise in your audio or buzzing and just all kinds of audio problems. So that's my list of the 5 most important features. And of course, there are some other features less important, but also of value, and they are the S-Cinetone color profile. I think a lot of people are going to be using that with this camera. I think the video-centric button layout and new menu system is a great upgrade. Just having all the buttons, labeled and everything like that, it's just going to make filming a lot easier. The fact that you can load your LUTs in the camera, I think that is also something that a lot of people are going to appreciate. The breathing compensation, that's going to be quite important. There is the active stabilization as well. I think, out of all the features, that's going to be probably, for myself anyway, the least important because I know it does crop in quite a bit. So I don't know how often I am actually going to use the active stabilization, but who knows? I don't have a camera with it now. Maybe I will use it a lot, but it's something that's there that maybe some people will find value. Of course, the cooling fan, so you know that your camera isn't going to shut down. I have had my camera shut down from heat, even with the menu set to, I guess, the maximum heat warning. I've had my my camera shut down on me, and that's just really frustrating. So having a cooling fan is going to be fantastic. Also, the full-size HDMI. I'm just tired of fiddling with these little micro ports. And yeah, so a full-size HDMI, I think for myself, I'm really going to like that. Also, I don't know if it's going to be a much of an upgrade over the camera that I have, but just the autofocus and touch to focus. I absolutely love the Sony autofocus, and if it's gotten better on this camera, I think you know, it's only a good thing. So that's something I'm looking forward to trying out. And the new sensor, this new backside illuminated sensor, which is new, and it hasn't been featured on any other camera before. I think it's a really nice feature as well. So what are the cons? So let's talk about those right now. So number one, it is an APS-C sensor. And for myself, I've been using the A6600, and in the past I've used Fuji cameras, and I've seen the images from an APS-C. I believe in it. It can be really, really good. So, if you're watching any video on the internet or YouTube, it's being compressed anyway. So I feel this is somewhat of a non-issue, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference anyway. And I think it's more of an advantage because you get this smaller setup, especially when you take into account the APS-C lenses, and you pay less. So it's not a huge con for myself, but some people may find that as one of the cons. Also, when comparing the APS-C versus full frame, I know some people are really big on full frame because it's just better in low light. And yes, that is true. And, for myself, the way I'm going to be using this camera, I'm not always going to be filming in dark situations. Plus, most of my lenses are going to be just prime lenses. When you're dealing with APS-C, you can counteract some of that by just making sure that you're using really fast prime lenses. And for myself, it's not really much of an issue. So the second con, number two, there is no mechanical shutter. So if you have to use strobes or you need burst shooting, this really isn't going to be the camera for you. But think about how often you use those features. I know for myself, it's not too often, and I even shoot interiors sometimes, but I can employ like longer exposures, bracketing, and just do a little bit of post work. So I don't think it's going to be an issue for me, but I think I'm going to see over time, and that's one I'll probably have to get back to you on. There is no viewfinder, and I feel a lot of people coming from the photography world and switching to video, they really love the viewfinder, and they're going to bitch and complain about this. But when you look at the situation, the FX30 has a fantastic screen, and it actually is a screen that's higher resolution than the FX3 that was recently put out. So it's going to have a really nice screen. And when you get used to using a screen, I think you'll realize that you don't really need it. Over the years, I've just gotten used to using screens, and I rarely use my viewfinder. There are some specific cases where I will rely on it. Take, for example, if it's a really, really sunny day and I need to, look at some footage or, frame something up, I will use the viewfinder. But, that's every once in a while. I think not having one, it's not going to be an issue for myself. So guys, that wraps up my take on the new FX30 and my explanation on why I pre-ordered this camera. And I hope this discussion helps you make the right buying decision for yourself. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Talk soon.